It's pretty woody even. But in the spring, something that we would associate more with asparagus, there's a sprout that comes up and you can pick them off and you can eat them. Of course, they're going to be a lot smaller than what we're used to, but that's asparagus. It grows all over the place. It makes a very good hedge. People aren't just going to go run through it. If you just touch it, you'll see what I mean. It's very pokey and woody. This is also a plant that's dioecious, male and female plants. Okay, so once again, if I see the fruit, I know it's a female. I don't see the fruit, it's a male. So just, and this works the same way in modern agriculture. What do you think I want? Do I want a male or a female plant? Actually, I want the male plant. The female plants, they have tons of berries and they spread all over the place like a weed. But the male plant, I can plant it. I won't have them spreading all over the place. I can control exactly where they grow. And what happened? How do they harvest them? They cut them off and they just come up again. Cut off, it comes up again. Okay. Go back to this question of the gall. This, once again, is not a fruit. This is a gall. This is because an aphid has attacked this plant and the plant has made this. If I see this type of a gall, I know it's a Palestinian terebinth. Now, not all Palestinian terebinths will have a gall, okay? But if I see that, it's 100% identification. This is a Palestinian terebinth. So it kind of looks like a banana, or I like to think of it one way that I use. A lot of them, they kind of look like a crescent. So Palestine, crescent, Palestinian terebinth. Okay, now all the terebinths will have leaves that are similar to this, but the Palestinian terebinth, if I look at the very tip, it's kind of pointy. I see a little pointy, pokey thing.
Like
the Atlantic terebinth that we're going to look at in a few minutes has a round tip. Okay, so Palestine pointy. They all will have these little berries, which can be used in condiments and stuff. They're not great tasting. They're used to make alcoholic beverages and other things. But one thing that's very significant about all terebinths is the sap, the tree sap. Okay? Turpentine. Does everybody know what turpentine is? It's used as a cleaner. This is where it originally comes from, is this plant. Now today, it's more common to make turpentine from pine trees. But originally, terebinths, and in this one in particular, they came from this tree sap. It's also used as a lot of different something that tastes bad. Once again, good medicine.
Good medicine.
Let's see. There's more than one candidate for wormwood, but this is one of the very good candidates for. So, of course, we have wormwood mentioned in several places in the Bible, most notably in the book of Revelation. It is better. What do you think wormwood might be used for? Antiseptic? To get rid of worms. Once again, you can taste it. It's a little bit bitter. Great for medicine. Okay, so it's actually like if I'm out and I don't have any water, it's something that will cause salivation. Like if I need some moisture in my mouth, it can be used to create salivation. So it's mentioned wormwood in Revelation chapter 8, verse 10 to 11, for example, and also in Proverbs chapter 5, verses 3 through 4. Take a picture of mastic terebinth on your paper. So once again, we talked about we have more than one type of terebinth. This is another terebinth. It's directly related to the one over there. Does anybody know what you call gum in modern Hebrew? Mastic. The word comes from this plant. Mastic, which is gum. Gum in modern Hebrew. The sap of this plant, just like that, it's important. They would take the sap, you can chew it like gum. Okay? So what's different between this terebinth and that one? This is an evergreen. Now, the other two terebinths that we're talking about, they're deciduous. The leaves fall off. But if you come and you look, once again we have the little berries. We have saps, but the leaves are quite distinct. Even though they're laid out in a similar shape as those, they're very waxy. And when you look at it, you can see kind of like a little bit of leaf even on the stem of the leaf. So you need to come take a close look at that. They're not delicate.
I mean, delicate looking. They look
Yeah, feel it. It's very waxy and tough.
Oh, I don't know. Wow.
So, once again, the sap of this plant is one that was very valuable and traded all over the place. This is probably one of the better candidates for the balm of Gilead. So, we have it probably in Jeremiah chapter 8 verse 22 and chapter 46 verse 11. So this is most likely the plant with the balm of Gilead comes from.
여기 나왔어요. 거기 나와 있는 거.
Cheers.
알라 아탄티트. 아틀란티트.
Okay, so this is the Atlantic terebinth. This is the third of the ones that we've just seen. It's similar to the Palestinian terebinth. But the leaves are laid out similar, but like I said, if we look at the tip, it's round. There's not a sharp point. So this is the key, one of the key ways of differentiating the two. The other key is the galls once again. You see this gall here? Or this one, these galls? If I see this gall that looks like a coral, I know immediately it's from an Atlantic terebinth. Now these ones are all dried out, these are old ones. The red one is what it looks like when it's kind of fresh. This is the tree that Absalom got his head stuck in. 2 Samuel chapter 18.
Absalom.
What did you say about the sap in this one?
All the terebinths have an important sap, so it's not any different in that respect.
How do you spell gall?
G-A-L-L.
Okay.
Gall. G-A-L. It's like gall is something like the bug's house, maybe.
Yeah,
bug's house.
When the bug bites a
Yeah.
tree, then the tree produces this thing to fight fight the.
Not fruit. Yeah.
No, not a fruit.
Something bad. So not healthy.
No,
That's
it's
true.
almost. I think of it kind of like a scar that develops where it was attacked by an insect.
An insect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Small bug or insect.
Yes, like so the insect attacks the tree, and then the tree produces this to protect itself against the insect invasion.
Yeah.
Okay,
What's the
So,
spelling on the car? What is this?
G-A-L. Gall.
this is,
Gall.
most of you would call this an almond tree. Half of my family grew up in an area where they grow this and they call them almonds. So I prefer calling them almonds, but the majority of the world doesn't see it that way. Northern California. It's kind of funny. The place where they grow them all, they call them almonds. Everywhere else in the world, they call them almonds. In any case, I spent a lot of my vacations trimming trees and. Okay, so. So, of course, one good way to identify this tree is if it has almonds on the tree. That's a good indicator. If we look at the leaves, it has a pretty distinctive leaf. However, one of the other plants that we have to identify, the Syrian pear, has a very, very similar leaf. Okay? So, it can be a little bit tricky differentiating the two, but it's no problem differentiating these two from other things. So what's unique about the almond tree?
Almond.
Besides the fruit. So one thing is the fruit itself. We have domesticated almonds and we have wild almonds. Now the wild almonds are bitter.
Bitter.
And it's only domesticated almonds that you really want to eat a lot of. The wild ones, has anybody ever tasted amaretto?
Amaretto.
Okay, this is sweet though, right? So the thing about the wild one is it's bitter and it's very sweet at the same time. You'll have this intense taste that's like amaretto, but at the same time, very bitter. And it has a very mild poison in it, actually.
All the almonds or just the wild ones?
The bitter ones.
Bitter one.
So if you ate hundreds of them, it could potentially kill you. But if you don't eat hundreds of them, then it's not really a problem. Okay, so in terms of the fruit trees, this is the first one that blossoms at the beginning of the year. Okay, so the almond blossoms, they're associated with spring. So we're going to talk about this more later, but this is also one of the products of the land that Jacob said was one of the important products of the land. So God has given his 7, but Jacob, when he sent presents to Pharaoh to get grain, this is one of the products that he said was one of the most important products of the land. One of the best things of the land. We also have it associated with Aaron's rod. Numbers chapter 17, verse 8. And I think, actually, when we talk about the first blossoming in the spring, this is Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 5. Okay.
I think somebody just recently said it's the first to blossom in spring and the last to produce fruit. Did that sound accurate?
Well, it is harvested later than probably most of them, so you give some leeway. Yeah, it's very critical to temperatures and stuff like that, how it's going to develop. In pictures, you want to take a picture on your paper so you know exactly what we're looking at here.
The juniper?
This is the jointed pine. It's not on your list?
Finish.
Okay, so we won't talk about it.
Finish and jumper. Finish and juniper.
I think last year I started dividing the sheet between what I teach in the first semester and the second semester. So in this case, I'd probably change it to the second semester. Okay, so then we'll go on to the Phoenician juniper. There's the sign right there. Okay, so that's this tree here.
Oh.
It looks similar to the cypress. So the tricky thing in identifying this is differentiating between juniper and cypress. Now there's more than one kind of juniper, but in terms of what we have to identify for this class, it's just this type here, the Phoenician juniper. And it, so one thing is it has berries. Okay, you can see the berries there. And they're attached right on to the needles themselves.
That's different than the contrast with the cypress. So it's a berry situation.
Cypress isn't the juniper. It's another tree that looks similar. I have an oversimplification, but only for the purpose of our test, this is a good indicator. If we look at the bark, what does the bark look like?
Bark.
It's kind of rough, it's kind of stringy. Okay, so the juniper, it has the bark of a cypress and the bark of a juniper, they look very different. So this is one of the key ways of differentiating between the cypresses that you have to know and the juniper. The berries, it is important, but cypress also has berries that look very similar. So and the needles, they look very, very similar. This is also if I just clip off a branch, probably most of you wouldn't ever figure out which one it was. So, okay. So sometimes juniper is one of those that can be either dioecious or not dioecious. Can be either way. Of course, does anybody know what the berries are used for? It is used to open up your lungs and stuff. We don't have any big alcohol drinkers here. This is what gin is made out of. Okay. Okay. This is quite a common plant. As you can see, if you look at it, it has thorns. It can be a very persuasive hedge. Keeps animals out. The root can be made into like a sarsaparilla type drink. And the young shoots can also be eaten similar to asparagus. And supposedly it helps to remove toxins from the body. So that's smilax. None of the plants are in great shape, but if we kind of look at it, it kind of looks like a smile. So really this looks very different from storax, but sometimes people get, just because of the names are similar, they get storax over there, the poisonous plant, and the smilax mixed up on the tests. So they look very different. The only similarity is the names.
What did you say about the root?
Can be used for like a sarsaparilla drink. taking pictures. There's your marker. This area right here, this little island that we just walked around, is all vegetation that's typical of the Sinai Peninsula. So this is called the Negev acacia. As you can see, it has some pretty nasty thorns. Things that grow in the desert tend to have animals from eating them. But not all acacias do have thorns. So there's more than one type of acacia in Israel. But we are only learning this one. This is the only one that's in this garden. The reason they have this one in this garden is because this is the only one that really grows in the highlands. It's not as sensitive to cold weather, but it's not that actually, certainly not the most common acacia in Israel. Okay, so here's the point where we need to compare. If we look at this tree here, what kind of tree is it? Has a round tip.
Phoenician.
This is the Atlantic terebinth.
Terrible.
Now, if I look at this way that the leaves are laid out here, this is called a pinnate construction. You see how they're directly opposite each other? This is called pinnate. Okay? Now, if I just take an example here. You see these leaves? They're really tiny, but here, they're directly across from each other, right? So this leaf collection here is pinnate, but I have them right across from each other on this on the leaf itself, but also across from each other on the stem. So this is pinnate. This is what I call bipinnate. They're pinnate on the leaf, and they're pinnate across the stem from each other. Okay, so these are going to be significant. They could show up on your test. Hint. So it's not that we're going to become botanists, but we have to have skills to identify what we see. So we need to know some basic vocabulary that's related to botany and how to find things and research things. Okay? Bipinnate, pinnate. Okay, so what do we associate the acacia with in the Bible? Does anybody know?
Acacia wood.
Not Noah's Ark, but the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah.
Okay. What else? The tabernacle, right? And the ark. Okay. So. Let's see. I'll do this tree over here. Just stay here. So, when I'm looking at acacias, one of the best ways to tell them apart is the shape of the seed pod. Okay, so for this particular type of Negev acacia, it looks like what?
Crescent.
So the Latin name for this plant is right there, Acacia pachyceros. Does anybody know Latin? It means horn. Okay, in Latin, pachyceros, horn. Now most of the other acacias actually that you'll find down in the Arava, they spiral. Like, I think I might have brought examples. Let me see. We don't have the correct tag for it. So, this is the salt plant.
Ah, salt plant. It's a salty.
Everybody can take a little leaf and taste it.
Salty.
So what do you think where do you think we'll find a salt plant?
And then again, we're going on rocks.
It's generally in more arid regions, but not only. But where do you think the salt comes from? It grows in places where there's salt in the soil. Okay. So, for example, if I'm down in the desert or someplace and I want to, add some electrolytes to my system, I can eat the leaves of this plant. Okay, I don't think I'm going to go into it more than that. Okay, now the plant that you were talking about that Abraham planted, this tree here, this is the camel. Tell you what, I'll bring the sign over. And you can take a picture and then I'll put the sign back.
They've outlawed these in Colorado.
Maybe this is the SL
Okay,
tree.
if anybody's taking
Suck up
pictures,
all the water.
it's this one. Yeah. Cameras. I mean, it's stuck in the middle of the salt plant. I don't know. Could be a little confusing. Okay, so, like we mentioned, this is the plant, the tree that Abraham planted in where? Beersheba.
Beersheba. For
Okay. Now, what's special about this?
the contract.
Huh?
Which one?
The tree.
In the middle?
The tree.
The big thing here. This is tamarisk.
The leaves are a little salty.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
just like the salt plant,
Uh,
it's a tree. It's a plant. It's a tree that grows where the soil is salty. We call that a
Yeah.
halophyte.
yes.
Okay. So that's one thing that's special. So, like this plant is one that I'll find down by the Jordan River today. It's very polluted. There's a lot of salts. What else? Okay, just to go back, the reference for Abraham planting this tree is Genesis chapter 21, verse 33.
33?
Yep.
The symbol of contract.
Shade tree.
This is also the tree that Saul and his sons were buried under in Jabesh Gilead, 1 Samuel 31:13.
What was that for Samuel?
31:13. Okay, so now let's just go back to some of the characteristics of this tree in general. It is a halophyte. Also will have salt that comes up. So why would Beersheba is where? In which part of the country?
Desert.
The southern.
It's not desert, but it's
Negev.
a very warm area, okay? It's actually in the Irano-Turanian zone. But it's a place where you need shade. So this plant, it brings salt up, and the salt will also come out in the leaves, just like we ate this one. Okay? Well, the thing about that is when we have dew, the dew collects on the salt. And then during the day, the dew evaporates, which cools somebody sitting underneath the tree. So it's kind of like a little, cooling system. I see what I did. I made my list as if I came around this way, but I brought you all through this way, so now I'm going back to LA. White broom. There's several different types of broom in Israel.
Rodent tree.
Some of them have thorns, some of them don't have thorns. White broom does not have thorns. But there's also ones that can look very similar to this that will have yellow flowers. So
Yellow flowers.
it's very difficult to tell them apart if they don't have the flowers on them. But you only have one broom on your list, so you can always tell it's a broom, but telling exactly which one it is, you know, is a different question. So this is the plant that Elijah slept under after he was fleeing from somebody that didn't like him very much in 1 Kings chapter 19, 4 and following. And it's also a plant that's used for making baskets, and the roots make a very good fuel. It burns for a long time. So, and this is mentioned in Job chapter 30 verse 4. It's probably the plant being mentioned. What people would do is they light them and they bury them underneath, and then they sleep on top. And it burns all night long while they're laying on it. And actually, using it for fuel, people started stripping the forests and the deserts of these, so it's protected actually, I think. Okay, I just got to write myself a note to sort the order of this a little bit better. Okay, now we're going to go back that way.
In the Bible, it is called a broom tree?
Broom tree, yeah.
Oh, I think there's this one.
The Shonze top.
Now, on your sheet, you see a bunch of little figures, question marks. Why is that? Because there's several plants that can look like a hound's tongue and are called hound's tongue in English. Okay, so this is the only one that we're learning in our class, but you should just be aware when you go out places, that's not the only possibility. We have to be careful in our identification of hound's tongue in English, as to there could be a lot of plants with that tag in the shade that kind of hangs out for us. So does anybody ever use capers in cooking? This is the plant that it comes from.
Really?
Once again, there's a really beautiful flower that comes up in the spring, really beautiful. But as you can see, there's thorns. And I can guarantee you this is a very nasty plant. It really digs into you. You don't just go running through a caper field without some consequences. So this is another one of the possibilities for the crown of Christ's thorns, okay? The thorns aren't that big, but they're really made in a way that they latch into you. Yeah. Tag over there? There's no tag. Now, the only plant that we really have in that category is the sand lily. And it's actually right there. It's not blooming right now. There's the tag. But actually, we don't even usually see this much. So this is, in all the years I've taught, this is the first year that you could even see that much. So once again, this is a geophyte. It has a bulb underneath the ground. I don't always see the leaves, and I don't always see the bloom. But so you actually, usually I bring my class out and say, you see that dirt? That's the sand lily.
You're a special class.
Yeah.
What do you see?
We haven't done that yet. We haven't seen it.
Excuse me, which one?
This is the sand lily.
Sand lily.
The Pancreatum baratinum.
We didn't have sand lily. We didn't have
Yeah,
열어서 나가지고 이게 참
But I think there might
헷갈리네.
be one up there.
영어 좀 써놓지.
Yeah, that's correct. Geophytes. There's a couple plants at the end that we're gonna kind of try to catch up with. That they're, you know, they're not just all over the garden or something. So. The Lamy innula, we're gonna try and get that a little bit later. It's also with the white squill. Oh, actually, we should do that one right now. Quick. And most of the year, all there is there's a bulb under the ground. Once a year, you have a shoot that comes up. You have some flowers that come out briefly, and then the animals come along. They eat all the leaves. The stem falls off, and you don't see it anymore the rest of the year. So we actually have several different types of geophytes that are similar to the white squill, and they all look like this. Some of them come up at different times of the year. Okay, so this is cypress. Which tree did we say we could have confusion between this one and juniper? They look very similar. You know, look at the leaves there. See? Very similar. So the thing is the bark is very different. This is actually smoother. But they both have berries at certain times of the year. They both. This one has cones that get big, but and you see that the cone is attached directly onto the stem as opposed to on the leaves themselves, right? Now we have two different types of cypress. You can see this one that points straight up like this, right? But this guy here, he kind of branches out. It's not as pointy. So we have the Cypress pyramidalis, and we also have the horizontalis. So the pyramidalis is the one that is really pointy, and horizontalis is this guy that kind of spreads himself out. And these they're, as you can see, it's nice and straight. It's a good building material, right?
What did you call that one that spreads out?
Horizontalis. So this is probably mentioned in 2 Chronicles 2:7 as a building material, and Zechariah 11:2. Pyramidalis is the really straight, pointy one. Cypress pyramidalis is this guy. Cypress horizontalis is this guy. They're both cypress.
First Chronicle, what is First Chronicle?
First Chronicle. Second Chronicles 2:7. Zechariah 11:2. Okay. Good.
It's 12:45.
Right now it is
With quick.
11:27.
Oh, no problem. 12:45.
The next plant is poplar, right? Is that the next one? Cyclamen. Okay.
Cyclamen.
Cyclamen. Wait, let's see if we see a sign for it.
어디에 사이클이? 꽃. 아, 저거.
I don't see a sign for it. Okay, so the sign's missing, but this is cyclamen right here. Persian cyclamen. There's different kinds. You can have different colors. They can be white. Okay.
파피루스거든.
What is Papyrus?
Okay, so we'll go. Papyrus is next.
저기 파피루스인가? 아.
Papyrus, right?
Yes. It's a piece of knife.
So obviously we know that this plant was used to make paper type product, and it's mentioned, for example, in Job 8:11 and Isaiah 18:1-2. The cross section of the stem itself is triangular, so it's not round. So it's distinctive. There are different types of papyrus. This is the most common one, but the stem, you know, it looks something like this.
파피루스라고.
It's triangular cross section. It's not very good. Okay. But I guarantee you we're not going to rip one of those out of there to put it on your test. Okay, does anybody recognize this plant that cooks?
Oh yeah.
What's another? What do we all? What's some other names that we call it?
이게 롤스
Lilies,
베이?
right? You can see the berries on there. This is related to the myrtle plant. Both of them were used as crowns, by the Greeks. Now, as you know, it can be used for cooking, and it's actually a strong herb. It has a strong odor. It can be either used to take away a headache or to give a headache. Both are possible.
Headache.
Okay. So you can crush the leaf and you can smell it, but anybody who cooks is probably familiar with this. It has a strong essential oil that can be used topically for rheumatism and bruises,
Rheumatism.
for skin irritations, also for dandruff. So it can be used for a lot of medicinal purposes as well. Okay. What do you have now on your list?
Syrian.
Syrian maple.
시리안 메이플. 아. 이게 무슨 메이플이? 시리안 메이플.
So this is Syrian maple.
아하. 시리안 메이플.
Okay. Let's see. Do we see a seed pod here?
시리안 메이플.
This is the helicopter. So, in terms of the plants that we're identifying, it has a fairly unique leaf. This is very common. You do see it a lot of places, and for those who know a maple tree somewhere else, the seed pod looks really pretty much the same, just smaller. Okay?
Is this cow? No?
Yeah. So actually we'll talk about it up here. It's just I don't know if we're going to find a tag when we go over here. We probably will, but we're going to talk about the carob over here. Who knows what this is? Smilax. See, I can already start testing you. Although you've just seen 100 plants and son who was feeding the pigs
The second
was
son.
wanting to eat. Okay? So actually the name for this plant in Hebrew, it's not from the seed, but it's from the pod.
They sell in the market.
Yeah.
In the Arabic market.
Okay, let's see here. sign for it. So it's this guy here. Does anybody from the U.S. recognize a tree that looks similar to this?
Ah, the red color. The color is red.
What's the trees there in Virginia? With the bark like that? Come on, they're all
We call it madrone. Okay?
You're thinking the crepe myrtle.
So this is basically the same tree. We call it madrone in English. Maybe in different parts of the country they call it something else, I don't know. Okay, but it's a very unique looking tree. Here it has berries. I think we'll get some better pictures down there. It's just this is where I have a tag. There's some more, probably some better examples and better pictures over here. Kills cattle and horses and things. So don't put your animals out and
올리엔더. 올리엔더. 독성이 있고.
yeah. Yeah, I think they're going to put some back in, but there's not even one here anymore. So it's a water plant. That's all. I'll bring you a picture. But here's the thing. We have the different words for water plants in Hebrew. One of those is kaneh, another one is suf. But we really don't know exactly which plant there are. There's a lot of water plants that are very similar. And the honest truth is we don't know exactly which. We know, generally, but when we want to pinpoint exactly one plant, that's a different question. Okay? So, it can be things that look similar to bamboo. It can be things that look like this. We have things that look similar to cattail. All of these, in different contexts, can be either kaneh or suf in Hebrew. Now, there are certain uses that are better for one than another. So, something that's more like a cane. These were used for measuring rods, right? They can get very, very tall, and it's mentioned more than once in the Bible where they take something for measuring. This is the type of plant that we're talking about. We know that this is going to be the plant. Other ones are very flimsy and they bend over. And it talks about a reed. This is something like this. But can we identify it absolutely? No. We have to look at the context and it's a little bit fuzzy. Okay, so there's no tag and there's no plant for me to show you, but I can only talk about it in general. Okay. Now what do you have? It's pretty distinctive.
Fig tree.
It also has a palmate leaf. And palmate. Okay.
Strawberry
this
tree.
is the first plant mentioned by name in the Bible, right? Genesis chapter 3. Here's the tag for that.
So looks.
So we mentioned in Leviticus chapter 23 for rejoicing before the Lord at Sukkot.
Scott. On Scott.
Does anybody know a medicinal use that's associated with this tree?
Rheumatism.
So aspirin comes from the bark of this tree. Okay, this is where they discovered aspirin. It's also, I would say, it's a very fragile, like as soon as if I cut this off of the tree, within one day the leaves will dry up and they'll start falling off. So when I want to have this to rejoice before God at Sukkot, it's not such an easy project. to rejoice for a whole week with this plant. At the end, I'm rejoicing with the plant with no leaves on it. Okay, you have Christ-thorn jujube next?
Yeah.
Okay, so there
그다음
is
뭐지?
no Christ-thorn jujube.
Christ-thorn.
That's because it's a very sensitive plant. It doesn't
예수님
like the
선
cold.
가시나무인가
The plant right behind you is looks exactly like this, except for the fruit. This one here.
Here, let me get a picture.
아,
Oliva spinacristy. Okay, it's not the it's very very similar to Christ-thorn jujube. The Christ-thorn jujube, the leaves, the thorns, everything will look exactly the same. The difference is the seed pod. Here's the seed pod on this. Okay, but on a Christ-thorn jujube, it'll look exactly like the common hawthorn. It's a little green, yellow berry. But it looks identical to this other than that. And it's quite common. It grows, you see it very frequently around Israel, Christ-thorn jujube. So Christ-thorn jujube is one of the traditional thorny things for Christ's crown. But as it's not common around Jerusalem, so it's highly unlikely that this is what the crown of Christ was made out of. Distinct odor, nice flowers. And it grows everywhere. I didn't bring a trilobe sage, but I will bring one to one of our classes.
rosemary.
And we'll go up and we'll look at the Syrian pear and we'll see if we can see a clammy innula.
Syrian pear
And I
has a
think
white.
that'll be it, right? Okay. Okay, so we'll go see. Okay, so we don't have a sign. This is clammy innula, but you might want to take a picture on your page.
What's this?
Clammy innula.
아, 클라이. 여기 제일 마지막. 없네?
So this
여기 있는 것 같은데.
one here with the yellow flowers is clammy innula. There's no tag.
What do we have?
There's no climate.
Page 3.
Page 3?
Page 3.
Nice.
Third from the bottom. Usually this they don't even. This is they also consume no weed here. So usually like when we go down and look at the caper, there's usually some
innula?
below there, but this year there's none there. But I just happened to see this one. So this is clammy innula. It's quite common. When you leave here and walk home or whatever, you're going to see this plant. You should touch it like this and smell it. It has a very distinct odor.
Distinct order. Ah.
Yeah.
You'll definitely recognize it.
No, not bad.
Yeah. It's like a little whiff, not a big
Are they always yellow?
Yeah, always yellow.
It smells like burning tires. It smells
burning tire, yeah, burning tire.
yeah, rubber.
So as soon as the
burning
flower
tire.
goes away, then it it kind of looks like a dandelion. You'll have this really poofy. Not exactly like, but it'll be. You'll see. Believe me, if you look when you leave here, you'll see this plant. See.
I say it looks like a dandelion. The ones that show the fuzzy stuff that blows in the wind.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like necessarily in a ball, but it's it'll be very puffy. The seeds are carried away by the wind. Very simple. Okay. So there's that. So all we have. So the one, if I see the leaves, I know that it's probably either going to be a pear or an almond. But also, it has the fruit, right? We still have a few little ones sticking out, hanging on here. So they're pears, but they're small ones. Oh, right here.
Agassa Surya. Agassa Suri.